Okay, good evening everybody, and welcome to stage 3, session 3 of the Tour du Monde. This is the, session 4. This is the last running today of stage 3, and we've already had 3 versions of the stage gone by. Current leader in the house is Jonas van der Wiel. I'll pull up his time in a moment. But this promises to be a very exciting race. It's slightly longer at almost 58 kilometers. Not much in the way of ascent. You can see from the graphic here, we've got those 2 small spikes. Now they will make a difference. My colleague and teammate Paul Nichols rode the course earlier in the day and reported back for us. And he says that these 2 spikes that you can see, the graphic coming up to now, will make a difference, and it certainly looks like it from the profile. So expect maybe a break to happen there, but the rest of it I think will be down to team tactics and teams trying to keep their riders together. As I say, it promises to be a very exciting stage, because I'm just going to put it up now, but Jonas rode in the 1 o'clock version of the event, and he posted a 1 hour 24 minute 50 second lead in the competition for this stage. So, and he's leading overall. But looking at the top 5, you can see on screen now, the top 5, there's only 1 minute and 7 seconds, well, less than time-wise overall after the first two stages, with the top 5 riders. So everything to play for tonight. And some of the riders that didn't go earlier, like John Beams, Henrik Mard, will be riding in this evening session. And I don't think the 1:24.50 of Jonas will stand. Jonas is more suited to the when the terrain goes uphill, and I think this stage is going to be more suited to one of the heavier riders. So we'll see how it goes. We're starting in 50 seconds, so the action will get underway, and I for one am very excited about this stage because I think we're going to see a bit of a change around in the overall. I'm not sure whether we'll knock Jonas off the top, but I don't think he's going to win this stage. That's my prediction. We'll see what happens, folks. As I say, Paul Nichols rode the stage earlier, was reported back, and yeah, he's got quite a bit to say. I'll run through that a little later as we get underway. We've got 183 riders on the line, so a massive turnout, our best, I think, to date in this competition, and they're underway. Have a great time, folks, and I'm going to stay with you throughout. Might have to pop down for a comfort break, but I'm going to be here until the end, and we watch all the riders coming in. So you can see John Beams on screen at the moment. He'll be staying near the front. And what's going to happen here, folks, is the same as almost happens every time. The riders are going to want to sort of like group up and not let anybody jump off the front. But also there's going to be a couple of riders at the front pulling the pace along, trying to make this group as small as possible. But currently, I mean, I'm looking at 84 riders in this front section before we even start to get down to the ones that are only slightly off the back. So my guess is that the majority of our riders, here you can see the back of the pack, well, towards the back of the pack. But to be fair, I think we're going to see the large group more or less stay together for a little while at least, until the teams get themselves sorted and they start telling riders to push off the front to up the pace. We're currently looking at riders that have been dropped off the back. There might be a few surprises here, can't see any at the moment, but if you're not in that front group, if you're not able to go with the initial starting pace, which you can see 50 kilometers an hour, folks, I mean, that's insane for a starting pace. And you can see Egg, I hope I'm EGE Poco, he's pushing the pace along and going in the red. So you can tell that, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name. Let's go for Eg. He's pulling them along at the front. But my guess is that we'll get riders doing that. We'll get riders being told by the teams to take a stint on the front and raise the pace, because the group's motoring along at 44 kilometers, 45, 46 kilometers an hour, but the front, they're going to be pushing 50. The aim is to, like we can see Rusinek there, and again Ig is just going back off the front. It does look like Poco, you've got Nick Giles from Poco as well, so it looks like Poco have taken on the pacemaking initially off the front. This is classic tactics, folks. What they're going to do is, I mean, as we watch Stevens here, doing 5.3 watt kilos, 5.7 there, going in the red, because they're trying to slim down this group. It can't possibly stay like this, because that would be insane, and it won't stay like that. But the thing is, for many of these riders, it's not difficult to stay in a large group. When you've got like 80 riders all together, you just get in the middle of them and you're pulled along. So I think we're going to see a large group more or less stay together, unless a couple of the riders can pull off the front and start pulling a couple of riders up to them. And this is going to be one of the tactics as we watch Nick Greenhalgh from Rasio. He's jumped off the front with Nick Giles now, and Henrik Mard. Now Henrik Mard is a dangerous rider to let go. If he gets 4 or 5 riders with him and gets off the front, you can say goodbye and thank you, because you're not going to catch him. And all the clued up riders that want to win this stage will know that, so they're not going to let Henrik pull out a gap off the front with a small team of riders. Exciting stuff. It's going to take a little while to settle down. That's my guess anyway. I wouldn't expect any real fireworks just yet, and it could even go all the way up until that first small orange section you can see on screen, which is well into the ride, well over the halfway point, before we see any real breakup of the group. Although having said that, you can now see we have a oh no, this is the back of the group, sorry, this is the back of the group we're looking at. So thankfully I think the front will stay together for a good while. But there are teams like Rasio Racing and Poco, they'll try and have a say in that. They'll try and get riders to work together and maybe try and break up this group. But it's very easy for a rider to get in the middle and just be pulled along without having to do almost any work at all. You're barely working when you're sat in the middle of a big group like this. When I say barely working, I mean compared to the riders that are having to push, you know, 5 watt kilos at the front, you're sat in the pack doing like 3 watt kilos. So you're saving an awful lot of energy, and that's important as the pace starts to get pushed up. You need to save as much as you can, especially if you know and you're honest with yourself and you can't stay with the leaders when they're pushing out the big watts later in the race. So you've got to take advantage of this big group and stay up there basically. Now I can't see any riders dropping off the back of this big group, so I don't know how many we've got, but I can see the number 103 on screen, so we've got at least 100 riders in this front group and no sign of it significantly splitting up yet. I think it will do. We're only how far are we in? Almost 5 kilometers in, so we're gonna see it split. I think it's fair to say that a lot of these 100 riders will be hanging on for dear life, even in a big group like this. So I can't see all of these 100 riders being capable of maintaining this wattage. And that's what you would expect. You would expect, and you can see here, I think this is the second chasing group. So we've actually got 108 right now. Here's the 108 boy, Mr. Tobin. It looks like he's having difficulty. So we've got, yeah, we've got 108 riders, 107 riders, sorry, in this group at the front. Now we know Sam Hutt is a very strong rider. We've seen him in various tours showing his class, and he's pushing off the front for Poco, and maybe, and you can see another Poco rider coming up on the outside, so maybe this is going to be one of their tactics. That's Eagle that we can see taking over Nick Giles at the front as well, Lyndon at the front from Poco. So Poco are having a say in this, and my guess is they're trying to thin this group out slightly. I love the jerseys, by the way, very easy to spot them. So it's nice to see, and they've got 4 riders right up at the front here. Paul Pudell from OTR, he's out front at the moment. That's good to see. But it's too early to start talking tactics, because apart from obviously these riders, Kristen, thank you, I didn't know your first name, Kristen, so I'll probably use that rather than your last name, because I'm having difficulty knowing how to pronounce it. So Kristen has already done a fair bit of work on the front, and he's continuing to pull them along being swamped at the moment, but I'm sure he'll take a recovery and then go again. Now we know Gavash from previous tours and from previous stages. Gav is another very strong rider and somebody that you don't want to allow off the front. And his teammate Jones is currently pushing off the front, so that could be another tactic. As we see on screen at the moment, we haven't even heard or seen John Beams anywhere near the front, and my guess is John is going to be a bit canny. He's going to stay away from the action that's happening at the front and just sit in, just, you know, relax, sit in, make sure that he doesn't miss any breaks that go. That'll be his main aim today. But John will be a contender in this race, there's no two ways about it. This is the terrain that will really suit him, I think. Those two short sharp climbs won't trouble him because they're not long enough, and I think he'll sort his tactics out for this one. Who else we got up here? Melville. I mean, we know all about Stevens. Watching that, a couple of the riders a bit further back. Decker is in there now. Decker will be a contender as well from Rasio. He's always there or thereabouts. I can see Soderberg's name's just appeared on screen, so he's going to be up there as well. Yeah, this is going to stay together, I feel, for quite a while. So in terms of commentary, it's really just a case of trying to point out any of the teams trying to make a break and what tactics they may well be using. But I don't see anything working here at this early stage. I think pushing off the front is not going to go anywhere with such a huge group chasing you. I don't think they're going to let anybody go. They might give the odd riders a bit of elastic and keep them on a short leash, but nah, my guess is that in terms of action, I think it's going to be, I won't say boring, but it's going to be pretty classic flat racing, where you just see the peloton, you know, toing and throwing amongst themselves. Now, Tim Cook, my ex-teammate from Team 3R, he's a very strong rider on the flat and could well be one of the riders to look out for today. He's one of the bigger riders, is Tim, so he won't be wanting to get caught out on any of the rises. He'll be wanting to be well up the front, if not off the front. He's having a push now to see whether whether the group will let him go. Now, Tim has got such a good engine on the flat that I don't think they'll allow him too much. I think they'll keep him on a very short leash because he is, and you can see riders have come across and bridged with him. Now, the thing is that if Tim can get 2 or 3 riders to come across to him and work together, then they could put together a break. But you can clearly see the large group, you've got the odd rider coming across, but the large group are not giving them any room to breathe, so to speak. They're keeping it all very tight. That's Daniel Schock, another very class rider, in second place at the moment. You've got Holtz going off the front. He's a class rider, pushing 5.7 off the front, which is what they need to do when going on at this pace. I mean, they're on a slight uphill at the moment and still doing 40 kilometers an hour. So, you know, 2% gradient and really pushing 5 kilos. Rusinek behind is pushing 6.9, 7.1 watt kilos. So that tells you how hard the guys on the front are having to work. Whereas if you look further down the field at the wattage that some of the riders that are tucked in are doing, and they're doing 3s, and in fact I've just seen a 2.7 from McAlpine. So while he's doing 5 now, but he was, you know, he was recovering And there again, you saw him going down to 2.9. So you can recover really well in the group if you get the drafting right. But you can see it's all back together again now. Nobody's got a gap. They're just keeping it all tight and controlled. And that's going to be the feature. So while these riders are fighting amongst themselves at the front and staying together, let's just have a look and see what happened in the earlier run-ins of the race. Give you a little bit of background. So if we go back to, let's see if we can pull up the much earlier, let's see if we can find it. So we want the results, and we want, now the first run-in was at my time. The first run-in was at 12 o'clock GMT, midnight, sorry, GMT, 1 o'clock in the morning Central European time. That was the first running of this stage, the NASCAR Spider, and we have got results from that result, in as much as Daniel Badker put in a 1 hour 32 minute 24 second ride, and that was a pretty good time for the first running of the event. He only just beat second place Michael Gibault from OTR, my teammate, and he beat Michael by just 1/100th of a second to take top spot. And then we had Keith Morton in third place. So that was the very first running of this event. And then let's have a look at, we had the 0700 running of it. So let's go to page 2 again. See if we can pull that one up. And then the 0700 running saw Mark Rowbottom from Razio Racing putting in a 1:26 to take over the lead. So, you know, not 2 minutes off. Took over the lead from Nick Hall. Now, there was only 600th of a second between first and second again on the second run-in between Mark and Nick Hall. 1:26.23 from Nick Hall, 1:26.23 from Mark. And even third place, there was only what we got there, 3 second difference. So the first three were split by basically 4 seconds. So a really good running on the 0700 results from the stage. Then of course the big hitters, or a lot of the big hitters, went out on the 1 o'clock running, and there we saw Jonas van der Wiel from Pedalers putting in a 1:24, so he knocked just over a minute and a half off the previous time with a 406 watt kilo average. Now, like I say, Jonas, I think, wouldn't mind me saying, he's more of either you could call him an all-round or maybe even climber based. So I think on the flatter stages he will lose his top spot to the stronger riders, the bigger riders, the flat course riders that we're going to see out and about in tonight's edition, like Tim Cook, for example, and John Beams. And they're going to work together, look, as you can see them riding off the front here. So expect Jonas's 1:24.50 to be knocked off top spot. Second place went to Mario Calvelius, and he put in a 1:25. And then Ben Phillips also put in a 1:25, and in fact 200th of a second between second and third on the 1 o'clock outing. So I'm expecting to see Tim Cook working for John here, which is what we're seeing on screen. But the being caught, I mean, Samut, we know his class. He's there and thereabouts. But nobody's been allowed yet to jump off the front. You know, we're seeing every single time somebody gets off the front, it closes down pretty quickly. And I think we're going to see that right up until we get to those small orange sections you can see on the profile. at about the, what would you say, the 2/3, 3/4 distance. And here's what Paul had to say of the climbs. He says, beware of the too small climbs on this course. Not too steep or long, but enough to cause additional pain. Expect a few attacks, and I agree with him. I think we'll see attacks when the ride gets to that point. The first climb would be ideal for attacks, he goes on to say. But there's a nice long downhill after it. I can't agree with him when he says nice long. By nice long, he means less than a kilometre. So I don't really think the downhill is going to be significant. Yeah, it goes downhill for a little way after, but the actual steeper part of the downhill is not long enough to be significantly relevant, because it very soon gets into the valley and then climbs gradually to the second climb. Now, the second climb doesn't really have a downhill after it. It goes up and then it levels off a little bit afterwards. So there's not much of a descent. So I think the second climb could be crucial in, if you're going to kick there and you're going to keep it going over the top. And that would be my guess in terms of tactics for some of the stronger riders. So we'll see whether that plays out or not. But I'm hoping that by the second kicker, the second climb, and these climbs are only very short, folks, I'm hoping by that second one we've already got this group broken up, because this is far too big a group to take into towards the finish, and I actually think that will happen. I think we'll see probably maybe half a dozen to a dozen riders breaking away off the front once we get to those kickers. So we'll see how it plays out. I didn't actually get the time. We've had a very busy day here in the household with the two children and various meetings, so I didn't get the chance to watch any of the early editions. I did plan on watching Paul Nicholls ride and maybe even trying to ride a little bit myself, but it didn't happen, folks. And to be honest, I mentioned to Damon earlier tonight, I'm not really well enough to be racing yet, or even maybe riding hard. So I'm taking it very steady, and maybe I'll get back for the second week of this tour, or maybe at the weekend. But I will only be riding very, very gently. And there's another good reason, if you're listening, pick your ears up, folks, because what I'm about to announce is very, very important. There's another good reason why I'm going to be wanting to ride at least one stage, and that's because anybody in this tour that rides one stage is put in for the draw. Here it is on screen, look. £100 prize giveaway, and all you have to do is complete one stage, at least one stage. So here you go, folks. Get yourselves on your bikes, get on the start line and ride a stage, and then you put into a draw. And I've seen how these draws are randomly drawn. They're randomly drawn with Neil Atkinson's spinning wheel, and it will be drawn after the final stage from everybody that rode a single stage or more. And I'm certainly going to be in the draw. There's no way I'm going to miss the chance to win £100. That would be a lovely Christmas present. Well, old Christmas present, but yeah. So if you want to take part in it, get yourself riding, get yourself on the start line, and you can find more details on that. Website is on screen as we speak, www.facebook.com RGT Community News. And that's a good place to go also to learn about everything else about what's happening with this tour and other RGT community news. ZMS are not just covering the Tour de Monde, they're covering a lot of the Pro Series racing at the moment, and so well worth going to the website and checking out the news to see what's happening. Okay. Back to the action, and Tim Cook once again. This time he's got, is that Alex with him, or is that John? No, it's, yeah, Alex Plager's there at the front, Nick Greenhow. Now this is, they've got, what, 12 metres at the moment. This is not going to go anywhere, but this would be a dangerous group to let get away. You've got some really, no. You see, the group they know who the danger men are, and they're closing it down. They're not giving any riders the chance to form a small 3 or 4, 5, 6 rider group off the front, because if they do and they get away, it's good night and thank you on a stage like this. So the large group behind are just closing everything down very quickly. They're not allowing riders the chance to get into a rhythm off the front. And that's why you're seeing constantly riders like Hats here jumping off the front and trying to make something happen. But it's not, sadly, Christopher. Yeah, he's putting a couple of really good digs as Christopher. So, but they're not going anywhere, and that's no disrespect to the riders. You know, I really appreciate them for doing this and trying, because it makes it a little bit more exciting. But in truth, you know, having been a commentator for quite a long time and watching races like this hundreds if not thousands of times, you know that a large group like this can so easily close down these riders. They've got to put in huge efforts to get off the front, and there's only so many matches they can burn. You know, if they put in too much effort at this early point, burn too many matches, then when it comes to the real breaks that are going to happen, and we know the breaks are going to happen on those 2 climbs, we just know that's going to happen. But if they put in too much work at this point and burn too many matches, when it comes to the real break, they're not going to be able to hang on. They're not going to be able to go. So, yeah, I mean, the stronger riders are always going to do this. They're always going to push and see, okay, who's got legs today? Who's feeling good? As we watch towards the back end of the group now, this chasing group. Now, I don't know whether this is the second group on the road. My guess is there might be a couple of riders in between, but this is basically the second largest group on the road, because that first group is 100 strong, and here we've got riders 126 downwards. So this effectively is the second group on the road. Now, while we're looking at the pain cams of John Beams and Daniel Neugbar, this is an excellent time to mention, folks, come on riders, get a grip, get yourselves a webcam, get yourself in this Zoom room. Let's have half a dozen, if not more, riders in this Zoom room so that we can watch you suffering. But also watch, you know, it's really exciting, especially when the action starts to happen. It's really exciting to watch these live cams and see the riders putting in the efforts, and also it's a really good way of verifying your performances. I mean, don't get me wrong, and many of these top riders are already verified, but this is an excellent way for, you know, riders who are not shall we say watching the broadcasts every day on a regular basis, for them to see the action and the, you know, the riders really putting in the top efforts. I mean, John Beams is going to be there at the end, we know that. He'll be fighting for today's stage, because this is the kind of stage I think that's going to suit John, and perhaps Daniel as well. So because Daniel's don't think he'd mind me saying, he's one of the slightly bigger riders, so he's going to be, we hope anyway, there at the end. Henrik Mard, you saw there, he's sitting in, taking it nice and steady, sitting in the pack, not showing. I mean, normally you'd expect Henrik to be pushing off the front, but I think he's realised that there's no joy in that at the moment. There's no point. let other riders do the work and save myself until the action really starts to hot up. Because we're only 20 kilometers in, so we're only just over a third of the way into the race, and we've still got 100 riders in this front group, as I said we would have. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's pretty obvious that riders riding in this group are not at the back and in the middle are not really having to put in a great deal of effort to get pulled along. And it makes it, I mean, I think even I could stay in a group like this, because I just took myself in the middle, and I'm only capable of 3 watt kilos, and I just took myself in the middle and get pulled along. You know, you just have to be aware of the wheels in front of you. Yep, I agree, Noel. John is one of my favourite riders, and it's Beams, not Beans. One of my favourite riders. I'm hoping for good things from him today. Let's see him close that gap in the overall. But he's got a couple of teammates helping him out. Not least of all Tim Cook, who's currently pushing off the front again. I mean, Tim is a real workhorse, and I've said on previous occasions, if ever you wanted a teammate, a top-notch, I'm a bit loath to call him a domestique, because he's a lot more than a domestique. Tim Cook is capable of winning a stage like this, so he's more than a domestique. But Tim, you couldn't wish for a better teammate when it comes to working and his work rate, because he just gives everything and he never gives up. But long way to go yet. As I say, we're still only just over a third of the way into the race, with Tim pushing off the front. And we've returned once again to the tail end of the, well, not the tail end, because we've got, I don't know how many riders we've got, but these are some of the riders further down the field. And don't forget, we will hang around, folks, and wait for most, if not all, of the riders to come in. We tend to do that here at ZMS. We tend to hang around and watch every rider coming into the finish, because my feeling is it's you know, it's every bit as worthwhile watching the riders at the back of the field as it is the riders at the front. They're having to put in just as much effort, if not more, because they're on the road longer. And Larson, one of my teammates from the USA, Holly. Who else we got here? Wonder Wheels from OTR. Don't quite know the name there. Wendy. I was going to say I guessed the W is a Wendy. So yeah, Wendy Wonder Wheels. That's a lovely name. Yeah, putting in a good effort here. Nice mid-range heart rate as well. So she's certainly working hard, taking advantage of the drafting, which is a sensible thing to do. Get yourself in a small group, take advantage of the drafting, especially on such a long stage as this. There's no sense in riding this kind of a stage out on your own, and any riders that are doing so are really not being very sensible, so to speak, because you don't ride this length of a stage when it's flat like this as a solo rider. You get yourself tucked in and you take advantage of the draft. It's nice that we're going through the ladies here, because that's 3 ladies in a row. Denise, you can see she's going into the red, so she's working really hard, Denise Higginson. And a low heart rate, that surprises me a little bit. I'm not sure that, in fact it looks like it's stuck, so maybe a heart rate monitor is not working. You need to have a look at that, Denise. But she's definitely working hard, that's for sure. Nice high cadence as well. So as I say, they were the riders a little bit further down the field. Now, have we got a break? I'm looking at this now. No, it doesn't look like we have. I was going to say, have we got a break in the peloton? But this group still looks huge. So I guess we haven't got a break. It's difficult to tell unless you work your way down the field one at a time, which I can sometimes do when I'm doing my own broadcast. I can sometimes use the keyboard and tab down. Here we go. The group has broken up because this is 74th place rider. So it looks like the front group has dropped about, shall we say, 30. Yeah, in fact, you can see them in front. So the front group is now slimmed down to 70 riders. And to be honest, I expect by the time they get to the kicker climb, the group to have whittled down a little bit further. These are the riders. I'm surprised to see Robin dropped off though, but Robin was having difficulties on Sunday's stage, and he was having some real difficulties with his equipment. You can see he's capable of really high wattages and working hard, but the equipment problems he was having meant that he fell down the field, and in fact I'm not even sure whether he finished the stage on Sunday. Sorry Robin, but I don't recall you coming into the finish. So maybe the technicals he was having put him out of the running in that stage. But anyway, I'm surprised to see him dropped off this main group. So I suspect maybe he's having further difficulties. Now, as I say, this front group is now down to about 70 riders, but you can see that the pace at the front is still being stretched, and you're going to get riders that are not. I mean, we're 25 kilometers in now, are we? Yeah, 25, 24 kilometers in. So a lot of these riders will be sort of like at their limit for the pace they can maintain over the period of about an hour. 35 minutes in at the moment, so expect to see as we go a little bit further into this stage that 70 whittled down even further. But I think we're not gonna see a really big split in this group until we get to those kickers, and then we're going to see the real strong boys off the front, and they'll pull away. I have no doubt about it. They'll pull away, and many of them will have scouted out this course. They will have either watched, certainly riders like John Beams and Henrik Mard and Daniel Schock will almost certainly have looked at the course profile, but also they'll probably have watched snippets of the earlier runnings of this race, so that they've got an idea of where the breaks can happen. I'd be very surprised if that didn't happen, to be honest. Most riders that I know that have got any racecraft do that. They check out the course profiles and try to find information on where's the best place to make breaks. As you can see, Henrik for not the first time, but for the first main time, just doing a stint on the front, probably just seeing how his legs are feeling. Is he feeling good? Is he going to be able to make the break when we get to the ramps? Now we have a small rise here. Currently we're on the flat, but we have a small rise coming up very, very shortly, but it's only a very small slope. I don't think it's going to make any difference to the pace here. Here we go. Look, you can see the course on screen at the moment, and where are we at the moment? The riders are about here. There we go. The riders are about there. So they've a fair way to go before they get to that first spike. But yeah, but you can see the second spike is the steeper of the two, but the downhill afterwards is not as significant. I just think, and you can see, if you look at the bottom of your screens, folks, and you look at the profile, you can clearly see that the first spike is like an orange that turns a little bit darker, but the second spike is quite a lot darker. Certainly at the beginning, so that tells you that it's going to be the steeper of the two. So those riders that haven't been dropped off on that first climb are going to be shelled on the second. It is only still short. Most of the riders will be capable of going up it in the big ring, because it is short. They'll be out of the saddle pushing the big ring. But my guess is, looking at the red, I'd say it goes well over 10%. So doing that in the big ring, you've got to have strong legs, and you've got to be going well. But riders like Tim Cook are capable of doing that. They're capable of hitting climbs like that at full gas and just shooting over the top. If it was longer, Tim would struggle, but my guess is he'll just completely obliterate it when he gets there, because it's not long enough. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to them hitting those climbs, actually, because this group is way too big, and it's making commentary very difficult, because there's really not much to commentate on here. We're seeing riders sending riders off the front, and teams sending riders off the front, and basically them taking turns at doing pulls, like we was watching Christensen here doing his turn on the front. But it's not enough. They can't get away. Kristen. I'm terrible with names. My memory's absolutely shocking. Never forget a face, but names, yeah, my memory is just absolutely shocking. So there we watch Tim having another push off the front. Like I say, he's a complete workhorse. Never gives up. High wattage as well. Look at the wattage he's putting out, 470 watts. Nice high cadence. Heart rate is right up there, but not maximum by any means. So he's working hard, but he's not emptying the tank, so to speak. Tim will be timing his effort here. He'll know what he's capable of. He's in the orange zone, so he is working hard, and in fact in the red now. Nick in the red zone, trying to pull up to him. But this is going... I'm very sad to say it, but this is going nowhere, despite huge efforts from these riders going off the front. Maybe what Hat's taking over and doing a pull on the front. As I say, if they could get a, shall we say 30-40 metre gap and work together, they could probably open it out. But with such a huge group behind, they're not going to let them go. They're just going to, you're going to get a rider closing the gap like you can see Williamson doing here. So Williamson is actually effectively pulling the pack along behind him, because they're keeping the gap manageable to Williamson. And then they know that once they close up on his wheel, then they can close up on these two out the front. So these two really have to bury themselves to get away, and at this point in the race they're not going to do that. They're going to work hard, but they're not going to absolutely empty the tank to try and get away, because it's too early. Now this looks like the first rider to be dropped off that front group. When I say first rider, I mean first rider back. So that tells us that we've got 69 in this group at the front now. I think it was about 73, so we've seen another 4 riders dropped off. I think we're going to see more before we even get to those kickers. Maybe only a few though, because like I keep explaining, it's not that difficult. Difficult being a relative word, but it's not that difficult if you've got the racecraft and the power to be able to stay with this group and try and get recovery. I mean, you can see Jones there. His wattage there was 1.6, so he was probably even freewheeling for a little while. And you can see riders in the 1.9 there, look. So just do what I'm doing. Look down the list and watch the riders that are actually taking active recovery. 1.1 from Polak there. So these riders, yes, they're having to put in a dig now and again, so you see them, you see that number shoot up. But they are getting recovery. They're watching the wheels. I mean, Koch is not going to get back on now. He's doing 2.4 watt kilos, 2.8, and he's gone. He's 70 meters behind. That's going to grow exponentially. He will not get back to this group. Anybody not in this group is not going to get back. And Henrik, along with Linden, having a push off the front again, and we've seen absolutely nothing of Daniel Neugebauer in the peloton, so that tells me that yeah, he's staying out of sight, out of mind. Be interesting to see where Daniel is towards the end of this stage. I for one am, because we know he's a good rider. And to be fair to John as well, John's shown his face up the front a couple of times, but he's more or less been staying out of trouble. And that's clever riding. That's clever riding. Excuse me. But Tim Cook off the front again. Absolute superstar. But Poco have done a lot of the work on this stage. They really have worked well, but it hasn't fetched them anything. We saw in last year's Tour de Monde, OTR, my teammates, doing a similar kind of thing, trying to boss the peloton, trying to, certainly on these sort of like rolling or flatter stages, they tried to dictate things, and to a certain extent they did. We had some really good racing from OTR and Rasio Racing in last year's stage, but today it's been Poco that have shone. They're the ones that have sort of like stood out. Now here's Daniel. I said we hadn't seen him yet, so there he is, and this is the first time I think we've seen Daniel going off the front. Very strong rider, somebody not to be toyed with, I think. So I think we'll see him tuck in and stay out of sight again. Maybe he just wanted to see how his legs are feeling as we're coming a bit closer to these two climbs. As we watch the Poco rider, I think that was Keith going off the front. Like I say, they've done the majority of the work today. So here we go. Now here's Kristen going off the front. I mean, Kristen's putting a lot of pulls off the front, so he's obviously got good legs and he's obviously feeling good. Nick Giles, his teammate, has also been working with him, and we know Nick is a class act. But as I keep reiterating to you, nobody's going to be allowed to pull off the front and get away. You know, we're watching Alex Plager here take a turn, but nobody's going to be allowed to go. I'm quite excited to see what happens when we do reach these first two spikes. How big is this group going to be afterwards? Answers on a postcard, folks. But my guess is it's going to really hot up, because this can't stay like it is. 70 well, almost 70 riders just cannot stay like this. Now this is Mike Aid, my OTR teammate. First time we've seen him today. Really good rider. He'll be enjoying this stage. Oh, Mike. He's one of the bigger riders, don't think he'll mind me saying. So he'll be enjoying this. And there'll be a lot of riders in amongst these 70s, well, in amongst the whole stage today, but amongst these 70s there'll be a lot of riders that are going to struggle when the clock ticks over the hour, because you don't do that many races on RGT that go over the hour. Significantly over, and this is going to be significantly over. This is the winning time today. I think is not going to be far off Jonas's 1:24. I'm expecting a 1:22 to take the win today. We'll see how close I get with that prediction. But yeah, that's my guess. We'll see about a 1:22 to take the win. Knock maybe a minute and a half to 2 minutes off Jonas's time. Because they have really pushed the pace along. All these jumps off front, all it does is that raises the pace of the peloton, and it's been significantly high all the way through. The peloton have not eased up at any point. They've kept the pace high. I don't know what the average pace for the peloton is at the moment, but my guess is it's well over the 40 kilometers an hour mark. Which for amateur racing is pretty good. We'll watch Mr. Melville. So how far? We've got 20 kilometers remaining, so we're almost 2/3 of the way in. And I think at the 2/3 of the way in point, we're going to see the first of those two spikes. Maybe just a little bit over. Maybe we've got about 3 kilometers to go now before we hit that. Maybe a little bit more before we hit that first rise. And this is Sam Up from Poco, a rider I like very much. Henrik Mard from Pedalers. Big effort being put in here by Henrik. You see from his power there, and you can see his figures are going red. 6.2 watt kilos, still up above in the red zone, pushing off the front. So, and John Beams has put in red figures in as well. They're trying to get the break before we hit the climb, but it's not going to happen, folks. Sorry, I know I keep saying that. I've watched too many of these type of races to know the tactics. They're not going to let them go. Too big a group behind and too fast moving. A huge group like that moves at a tremendously fast pace, and a solo rider has to put in, 2 or 3 watt kilos more than the riders behind just to get away. It's almost impossible to break away from such a large fast moving group. And the only time when that changes obviously is when terrain goes uphill, and in a couple of kilometers that's exactly what's going to happen. So expect that to be where the break happens, folks. I mean, this is looking good. This group is looking and riding very, very well, I have to say. There's Daniel Schock. He'd be a rider I'd expect to be there at the end. In fact, a lot of the riders that I expect to be in the group that makes a break now towards the front. A few of them are a bit further back, but the majority of the riders, you can see the Team 3R, Jared Miller here, but you can see the Team 3R jerseys. So you've got John Beams and Tim Cook towards the front. You've got Soderberg towards the front. Yeah, you've got Vanbers. Now Vanbers from Rassero Racing, this is the first time I've mentioned him tonight. And he is a top rider, Jorgen. And this is the first time we've seen him. So Jorgen has obviously done the sensible thing and saved his powder until we hit the climb. That is class riding, folks. That is what you should be doing. You should be staying out of sight, out of mind, getting all the recovery you can, keep your head out of the wind and save your powder. Now I expect Vanbers to be well and truly in the group that gets away. Exciting times because we're almost there. As John rightfully gets towards the front. Because he's a bigger rider, this is what riders like him and Tim Cook will do. They will try to get towards the front of the group, if not off the front of the group, because they're going to be the ones that, you know, struggle. And I use the word struggle only slightly because they're going to struggle on the climb. It's not long enough to make them overly struggle, but they will struggle. And they will probably fall back a couple of placings unless they've got the power to get up it and over the top. But I think the first one possibly, but the second one is too steep. I think we're going to see a slowing down of riders on the second one, definitely, and maybe even on this first one. As I say, I wanted to watch the earlier running of this race to find out just how long and how steep these two climbs were. But couldn't. Their positioning, you're right, James, this is exactly what I'm saying. This is going to explode. Hats is doing a sensible thing and trying to get a little bit of a gap before we actually hit the climb. But yeah, they're positioning themselves now, and this is just going to explode. You're going to see red numbers, folks, and you're going to see the contenders kicking on this first climb. As we're looking further back to the field. Come on, get back to the front, please. It's not often I say this, but get back to the front because that's where the action's going to be. Let's see them kicking off the front now. I always like to look further down the field, but I want to see what's happening off the front. Hats is doing a really sensible thing here. He's obviously got good legs, obviously feeling good. Look at his wattage. He's putting in what? 5.7 watt kilos and above off the front here. He's got a 40-meter gap. Now he will get caught. This is not a winning break by any stretch of the imagination. He will get caught once the riders behind start to kick and pull up to him. But this is a good gap to have. I mean, he's opening it up to 60 meters at the moment. So it's a good gap to have. Look at John Beams, mouth open, trying to get in the air. This is why I love the cams, folks, and why more of you should be doing this. Look at Daniel, out of the saddle, breathing heavy, really, really pushing on this climb. John, absolutely mouth open, trying to get the air in. Yeah, I agree, Stuart, sliding space. But look at this effort from Hats. I mean, it's been pegged at the moment at 60 meters, so they're not letting him go. And my guess is he will be caught pretty quickly. But it's a good effort off the front. But the majority of the peloton are now over that first lump. So you can clearly see it wasn't steep enough or long enough to sort out the riders. But what you can see here, and what Damon is showing on screen, is you can see that they managed to shell another 20 riders. In fact, probably more, because these off the back are going to struggle. There's Mike Aid, number 48. Jansen's 49. Gavash. I'm surprised to see Gavash being dropped off the back of this. And he's got to close this gap now, same as Jansen's is doing. If Jansen's allows this gap to just grow slightly, he's not going to get back on. And he knows that, and so does Gav. So these two riders they've got to close that gap up very, very quickly. Otherwise, they're not going to get back onto the groove. Come on, Gav. Big effort, mate. Come on, Janssens. You too. Big effort. Get back on. No, he's probably gone. He's gone. He's not going to get back on. I can state that. I've watched this so many times, and it's happened to me so many times. The group just sail away from you. The group, you've nothing left. You've nothing left to give to close the gap, and they just go away. And look how quickly they're closing down Hats, who made that early break. Got it down to 50 meters now, and it will come down very, very quickly. So the group has now whittled down to, what was it, about 47 riders? So we've gone from 70 to 47. Now, how many of these 47 are we going to be able to shed on that last spike? And that's going to be critical, folks, because Tim Cook is struggling here. He's worked ever so hard. I feel sorry for Tim. And in fact, it looks like he's got an issue. Tim's going down to 0, and that would not happen. So Tim has obviously got some kind of a problem. And my heart goes out to him, because Tim he doesn't deserve that. Not after all the work he's put in. Hopefully I'll have a word with him later and find out what the problem was and report back on that. But after all the work he's put in, as we see Hats caught, he's got it going again, but we don't know what happened. Now, it might be something just like cramp, or it could be a true technical dropout that is beyond his control. You watch Pedersen, another rider that we haven't mentioned today, Pedersen, class act. So we're seeing a lot of names that I expected to be in this front group, including one rider there, folks. Can you guess who it is, who we've not mentioned at all? And he's there at the front, and he's going to be a contender today, and that's Lundqvist. So all the I think we can see all the contenders are here. It does look like the group has slimmed down even more. We'll try and get a head count when we can. And it's great to see Peter Brook-Varvel has managed to stay in this group as well, my teammate from OTR. As we're watching Finn Brask, another OTR rider. Actually, no, I don't think he is OTR, is he? No, he's not. No. Ah, no. He's wearing the Danish colours. Now, this is a rider I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Maybe if we highlight him on screen, we can get his first name. So how many have we got in this front group? It does look like we've got about 30 odd riders. So we've split, 40 right, I can see 41 at the back. So we've got 41 riders in this group. So we've slimmed it down by 30 as we're approaching the second of the climbs, and this one is slightly longer, slightly steeper, but with less of a descent afterwards. So let's see how many we can drop off on this climb. This is going to come down to a huge sprint, more riders than I expected, to be fair. I was hoping, well, not hoping, but I was thinking maybe we'd have a group of about 12 going into the finish, as we watch Gavash being dropped off. Now that again is another surprise to me. He mustn't have the legs today. Simmons, Tony, another one of my teammates, he's been dropped off. But yes, seeing Gav dropped off, that's a bit of a surprise. I wonder whether Tim's having issues. Jan Dekker. Now, we've hardly heard anything of Jan, but there he is, towards the front of this group, and he's going to be there at the end. Melville, another good rider, showing his James off the front. This is getting really exciting. You can see that they're not on the steepest part of this slope at the moment. The steepest part is right near the top. I don't know how steep it is. Like I say, I would normally have managed to catch the earlier edition and found out, but I wonder how steep it does get. I don't think it's steep enough or long enough to have a significant effect. It's breaking up the peloton, there's no doubt about that. But is it enough to sort of like form a group? Booster jab done. Well done, Paul. Nice to see you back, mate. I actually used your writings, sir, in this broadcast earlier on. So thanks for giving me the lowdown. But you were right about the spikes. They did have an effect on the peloton, but not significantly enough, I don't feel. Now then, but as we're watching this group off the front, it does look like we've got a breakaway group. Now, have we got the 12 that I said we might get, or is it bigger than that? Now then, no, it does. Yeah, hey, I love it when I'm right. I'm not big-headed or anything, but I said about 12 would get away, and it looks like I'm not far off the mark. So yeah, I said the second spike would probably whittle it down and we'd see about 12 get away, and that's exactly what has happened. Maybe a couple more. There might be a couple more off the back. I think we got 16 away actually, because it looks like Daniel. I'm surprised Daniel has been dropped off, and Nick Giles as well. So a couple of riders have been caught out. I'm really surprised to see Nick dropped off, and these riders are going to have to put in supreme efforts. They might do it, but I don't know. Can they pull it back? I'm going to say no. I don't think they'll catch this group. I think this group, this is where the winners are going to come from. And this could be an all-out sprint for the line. I don't see, even though we've got these two riders, Hatz has worked fantastically well today. Christopher Hatz, doing pulls off the front, but I think he's going to pay for it. I don't think he's going to be contesting the win at the end. I think the rider that's going to win this is a rider that's more or less stayed under the radar. Now, I will call out a winner when we get a little. We've got 9 kilometres. Let's wait until the 6 kilometre mark, and then I'll call the winner. Because I think it's going to be. It might be one of the favourites, but it could well be a rider that hasn't really shone. When I say shone, I mean, you know, a rider that's used all his cunning to stay in the pack, out of sight, out of mind. And John is definitely, well, he's always a contender, isn't he? You can't rule John out when he's in a finishing group like this. But my feeling is that if John's going to win this, he's going to have to go for a long one. I don't think he can win it in a sprint. I think there's better, I'm saying better, I think there's stronger sprinters in this group. Although Johnny's a big lad, so I don't know. Now, I'm really pleased to see Nick Greenhalgh in this group as well, because I think Nick has got a good sprint on him. Jan Dekker, we know that Jan Dekker, he will possibly try and go for a long one as well. but he's no mean man when it comes to the finishing few meters. So Jan Dekker could be a contender as well. Nick Giles, he's been dropped off. I really expected him to be in amongst that front group. Peter Brook-Varvel is there with this group as well, so my teammate Peter was also caught out. And I think that's probably, and Hedidam as well. So I think these riders were caught out. I think they didn't expect to get dropped from the group. Now they can see the group in front of them, and if the group start messing about, then they could potentially close the gap. But I'll be honest, I don't see it happening. Not with 7.7 kilometres left to ride. I don't see them closing that 100 metres. And in fact, they're pegging it. They're keeping it steady, but they're not closing it down. Not fast enough anyway. Potentially they could do so if they work well together and this group start looking amongst themselves for the potential winner. Okay, so we're getting to 7 kilometres. Time to pick a winner. You know, I'm going to go for Jan Dekker. He stayed under the radar, barely mentioned him tonight. I'm going to go for Jan Dekker as the winner of this stage. I mean, obviously I have my favourites that I would like to win, but I've got to be upfront and honest. Yeah, it's going to be a Watts battle for the line, definitely, Paul. And I think Jan, he's got not just the power, but I think he could well do this. And I don't think Greenhalgh is going to be far away either, but I think Jan Dekker is going to take this one. So let's see. I'm looking forward to this finishing sprint. I think it's going to be quite exciting. And thereafter, folks, I think the battle for placings lower down the order is going to be exciting as well. Because this group behind are going to be fighting amongst themselves. And who's your money on out of this group? The Nick Giles group. You've got Rocket Roy Neild there. Now he's a big lad, he's Rocket Roy, so he could put in a big sprint if he stays with these riders, and I think he will. Daniel Neugebauer, we know he's good. My guess is that these riders were caught unawares when the group split apart, because I wouldn't have expected a lot of these riders to have been distanced from the front group. Okay, so before we get into the final sprint, folks, another mention of the fantastic prize giveaway that RGT Community News is offering. You go to the Facebook page, RGT Community News, just type it in and you'll get more details. But basically, you only have to complete one stage of the Tour de Monde. I mean, please consider completing more. But I, for one, will, I don't know how many I'm going to be able to complete, but I will do at least one myself to be in with a shout of this £100 prize giveaway. And the prize is drawn randomly, so you don't have to do anything else other than ride a stage. Your name will go into the draw. It's a completely random draw. We'll probably use the spinning wheel. Keith Aitchison runs that. And this will be done after the final stage and the winner will be announced. So that's something to really look forward to, and it's something which I'm looking forward to. It'd be nice to win it. But anyway, back to the action. We've got 5 kilometres to go. Henrik Maard pulling off the front. Now, I've not mentioned Henrik Maard as a potential winner, because for Henrik to win this stage, you would have to jump off the front and go for a long one, and I don't think that's going to happen in a sprint stage like today. I don't think we're going to see a rider just jumping off the front. I think this is going to be a battle of the heavy watts. Who can put out the big watts towards the end? We might see a few meters gap arrive, but this is going to be about who's got the best sprint. And as I say, Nick Greenhalgh is definitely a contender, but I've picked Jan Dekker from Rasio Racing. I know Nick, I believe this is the same Nick that from over on Swift. So a very, very good class rider. Jan Dekker, we watched Jan in last year's Tour de Monde, and he was one of the stars. We really enjoyed watching Dan riding and racing. He's got very, very good racecraft, knows what he's doing, and today is a complete vindication of that, because he stayed out of sight and out of mind, and we barely mentioned him. And that's the sign of a class rider, folks, on this kind of a stage. When you stay out of the action, you let others do the work, and then you take it to the end. Yeah, it's going to be very exciting, Ben. Your money's on Rassio Racing. Who are you picking? What name have you got? Who are you picking from Rassio? Because there's a couple of Rassio riders in here. Yeah, it will be interesting, James, to see whether we get a team. I mean, Poco have got riders in here. So it'll be interesting to see whether a couple of teams work together. Now, we're seeing the pace being raised, because here we can clearly see this rider at the back struggling to get back on. He will probably catch the wheel, he probably will get back on, but that's one of his matches burned, maybe even more than one of his matches burned. So he's going to pay for that. Now you can clearly see that this group behind have closed it down to 70 metres. That front group need to up the pace, because if this group behind and the likes of Daniel Neugebauer and Nick Giles get let into a second chance, then they could throw everything up in the air. It could be, because there are some good sprinters in this chasing group. Some very good sprinters. That got dropped and probably didn't expect to get dropped, and they are closing the gap. This is going to be very, very exciting. They've got it down to, what, 30 odd metres? I mean, heady damn. Peter trying to get across, desperately trying to get across. What an effort. Fantastic effort, Peter. 8.1 watt kilos he's putting in here. Is he going to make it? He needs to grab the wheel before he runs out. Come on, Peter, get across. He's done it, you know. He's got the... Now he needs to get past this man and get on the back. Come on, Peter, keep it going. He's done it. He's got there. I'm really surprised to see Jan. This is a surprise for me. Jan will be burning matches here that he doesn't need to do. So perhaps my pick... he's struggling. Maybe he hasn't quite got his legs. Because this is the first time I've seen him racing for a little while. So maybe Jan is still coming back. And my pick, I don't think he's going to be there. Because if he does get back now, he's going to be absolutely knackered with 2 kilometres to go. So he's not, no, Jan's not in the running now. Oh, this is getting exciting. Barnett is trying to close the gap too, but Shapers is getting across. These riders, Hats is going for a long one. I mean, he's done an amazing amount of work. If he wins this stage, it will be truly amazing, because he's put in so much work. I don't think he will. I think they're going to swamp him in the sprint. Fantastic effort. So can my second... I don't know. A couple of riders have broken away off the front here. I mean, we've got this rider who I can't even begin to pronounce his name, don't know anything about him at all. So this is a rider that's definitely stayed under the radar. Don't know anything about him at all. Don't even know his name. But he's going to take the win. Wow, and Hats, what a fantastic effort from Hats as well. I wish I had the name of the rider out front though. I apologise. Petrus, I'm going to call him. Petrus Vicius. That's my guess at his name, pronouncing his name. He's going to take the win here. He's got an 80-metre gap and he's only 400 metres left to ride. I'm going to need to do a bit of checking up on him, find out who he is, where he's come from, because he's completely stayed. I mean, I did mention him once earlier, but this is a shock to me. I didn't expect to see a rider jump away off the front. I thought this was going to come down to a sprint. So well done. Yep, and there's his winner over the line. Don't know what form he's got, so we're going to have to... and there's Hats taking a well-deserved second place. Samut got third. And too close to call the rest of the riders. So we'll basically get a leaderboard. Live results are coming up as we speak. And you can clearly see Nick Greenhow got third. So I did pick one of the podium riders. But my pick, Jan, fell away, and here he is in 29th. And my guess is that Jan isn't quite race fit yet, because he's... I'm not going to be ashamed to say this, but Jan is better than this. He's capable of much better than this. And he knows it and I know it. So, and Hedidam got dropped off, so yeah. A good race, I've enjoyed it. A bit surprised at the ending, with two riders breaking clear, but Pat certainly deserved his second place for the amount of work he put in. Didn't expect him to get a break, but he did. The winner, yeah, didn't expect a solo winner. Genuinely thought this was going to go down to a watt battle and a sprint at the end. So now then, the question is, I'm well out with my prediction. I said I thought a 122 would win it, but look at the time, folks. 120, and we're down to 40th place. So this pace on this stage has been 4 minutes faster for the 40th place riders. I mean, 119. That's 5 minutes faster. Remus, they call him. So Remus has put in a 5 minutes into Jonas, the leader of the event. Now I don't know what previous results Remus has had, or even if he's ridden any of the previous races. I really don't know. I do know some of the other riders on this leaderboard will be in with a shout of climbing up the leaderboard by a good margin as well. I mean, John Beams will definitely climb up towards maybe even towards a podium spot in the overall. So this is going to shake things up, and I said it would. I said this stage, I didn't think we'd get a 119. I was predicting a 122. Wow. But I said right from the start that the pace was exceptionally high. And all those riders that you saw, certainly the Poco locomotion team, were pushing riders off the front in the early part of the race, time and time again, and they were pushing the pace up. And that's why you've seen such a quick stage, because the pace was constantly being pushed up with riders jumping off the front. So it's no surprise really that we've seen an exceptional time. But to take 5 minutes out of a rider like Jonas van der Wiel is just absolutely incredible, and I think he's going to be shocked. He's not going to have expected this, and perhaps now he wishes that he'd ridden this evening stage, because my guess is Jonas could have stayed with that group and maybe come in with a 119 himself. So yeah, because when you're being pulled along in a big group, folks, it's a lot easier. I mean, Jan Decker, you can see he's only lost a minute, well, less than a minute, and finished in 28th place. But Jan he's a better rider than his 28th place, definitely. And so my guess is that he's still finding his racing legs. Something similar, because yeah, I'd have expected him to be higher up the leaderboard. And I think riders like Daniel Neugebauer and Nick Dowes and a few others were possibly caught out. Almost got back to that front group. We almost did have a sprint off the front. So Tim Cook is finished well down the order in 62nd place, and that's for one reason and one reason only. Tim Cook was working for his team in the early part of the race and pushing the pace off the front. So that's why Tim has finished so low down in the order, purely and simply because he was the one putting in the huge efforts at the beginning of the race, along with a few other riders like Soderberg was doing much the same for his team. So we've seen some good racing today, some good tactics, some good racing, some good teamwork. I mean, for me, excuse me, I'm struggling, but for me the outstanding team today was Poco. They're the one responsible for this fast pace and for keeping it high, keeping the pace high. As we watch one of the Poco riders currently on the screen, Dulik is it? But yeah, it's been a very enjoyable race. Hope you've enjoyed it as well. Now we'll stay towards the end. We've got quite a lot of riders still to come in. Don't know whether all the riders will complete the stage, and I was a little bit sad to see Robin Sanderson pull over to the side of the road. I don't know whether he's going to be able to finish the stage or where he is. I hope so. Yeah, what an incredible time, Paul. That's what I'm just opining about now. It's pretty incredible to knock 5 minutes off the likes of our leader. Overall leader is pretty strong. Yeah, I did say, James, before this stage kicked off that it would shake up, and I was right, but I'm not taking any credit for that. That was pretty obvious that a stage like today, I mentioned this on Sunday, that the true climbers would suffer today and the overall would have a shake up, and that's exactly what's happened. So that can all change though. As soon as we got a climbing stage tomorrow, we'll have a look at what's upcoming towards the end of this broadcast, folks. We'll show you the tomorrow stage, we'll show you the profile, and I think it's either a hilly or mountain tomorrow, so we're going to see different kind of racing, and I'm definitely looking forward to it, because this tour is now wide open and getting exciting, and this just proves that a tour like the Tour de Monde is not just about the climbers. It's about any class. There, I just saw Robin Sanderson, 78th place. So he has finished. Glad to see he's got back. That's wonderful news. As we're looking at the top 10 again. Some really good riding here. I am so pleased to see Samut from Poco and Linden from Poco up there in the top 10, because they've deserved it. They've really put in a lot of hard work today. They're responsible for this 119. Have no doubt about that, folks. They're the team that has done this today, along with Rasio. I mean, Rasio Racing were also responsible for pushing the pace up, as we watch the Rasio rider here, Plauter. But yeah, Nick Greenhaug and his teammates worked really well. I mean, Nick must have thought he was in with a chance, and to be honest, I think had it gone to a sprint, Nick would have been there or thereabouts. I think if if Jan had been sort of like, as we watch Rasio Racing, fighting for this finish, is he going to get it? No, he just pipped on the line. But yeah, I think had Jan been race fit, I think he would have been up there as well. But John Beams is 14th place, excellent position for a big man, good all-rounder, and that's going to move John up the overall. I might go away and do a little bit of calculating a bit later on this evening and try and work out the overall before it's officially published, because there's no doubt it has definitely swapped around significantly. This is a surprise. Lundqvist, I know Lundqvist is a really good on when it starts to go uphill, but to see him so low down the order, has he had an issue? Has he had a problem? I don't know. He's much stronger than his 107th suggests. Internet. Thank you, Matthias, for letting me know. I suspected you'd had an issue, mate. You're too good to be down in 107th place. So yeah. And Van Bers, Jan, is this Jan Van Bers? It is. Jan Van Bers is too good to be down in 110th. Has he had an issue? You know, when I say this about riders, folks, you know, Ingmar, when I say this about riders, I'm not doing them a disservice. I'm actually doing exactly the opposite. The riders of the likes of Jan Van Bers are too good to be down in 110th place in a race of this nature. So that tells me that they've had some kind of an issue, the same as Lundqvist has just told me that he had internet dropouts. And you have to feel for the likes of Robin Sanderson, because he's ridden 2 races that I know of where he's had issues in. We saw him pull over to the side of the road and have issues today, and he had issues on Sunday, and that's really, really sad. Yeah, chapeau to Tim. I mean, Tim Cook is he's one of my favourite riders to watch, because Tim never gives up and he puts in so much work for the team. I mentioned this during commentary, and he's just a fantastic teammate. We ought to recruit him over on OTR, I think. Pinch him. Yeah, Greg Barnett, well done. I agree. Well, all the top 20, Simon, got 119s, which is pretty bloody incredible. To get 20 riders coming in 5 minutes faster than the lunchtime slot is pretty impressive. But the reason why that is because, don't forget, there was 40 riders going in to this last section of the ride. You know, I mean, all right, we got 12 towards the end, but after that second spike we had 40 riders. So that's why you got so many coming in with such a fast time, because we had huge groups, large groups coming in towards the finish. And that's what this kind of a stage can do. I don't think we'll see that again. This is by far and away, I think, in terms of flat and long stage, I don't think we've got a longer stage than this. I think this is the longest stage of the tour, almost 58 kilometers. So 57.7. So yeah, this is the longest stage, and it's possibly the flattest stage relative to distance. So you're not going to see anything like this again. I mean, 119, I expected, as I say, a 122. So even my best predictions were 3 minutes out. Fabulous riding. And even the riders at the back, I mean, I was truly expecting to be sat here. There's Samir. Now Samir's the guy, Samir's Magic Roads. Samir is the guy who was responsible for putting these roads together. Deserves a big shout out, Samir's Magic Roads, because he's done a fantastic job, and particularly this one has been tremendous to commentate on. Really looking forward to seeing what his mountain stages look like, because he doesn't do easy, doesn't Samir, when it comes to the mountains. Here's Daniel Day from OTR. So we're seeing the sorry, not Daniel, Derek, I should know, same name as me, Derek Day. Now, as I said, we're 1:33 into the race. I was fully expecting to be sat here for about the 2-hour mark, I'll be honest, with a 57 kilometre stage, 58 kilometre stage. So I was expecting to be close to 2 hours to see the yes, I agree, Paul. Great to see Samir actually riding his own roads, but the fact that I'm not going to be here for 2 hours means you can tell how fast this stage was. Pardon me. Even for the riders at the back of the field. I mean, they got pulled along. Don't forget, these riders got pulled along in the early part of the race. We had a... Excuse me, I'm really struggling with my breathing. We had a huge group of 100 riders right up until more than the halfway point. And even when we got to that first rise, that first short climb, we had 70 riders. So that tells you the quality of racing today. Now, Damon is putting on screen the results 1 to 30, and then we'll get 30 to 60 and 60 to 90 and 90 to 120. So we'll get all the results up on screen, and then once we got the last rider coming in, and we can't be too far off now, I think we've got we're about down to the 130s now, coming to the 140s. So we've got the majority of the riders in, and once we get the last rider over the line, we'll switch to showing you tomorrow's stage, the profile, and we'll show you the graphic, and we'll see what Samir has got in store for us, what he's managed to come up with. So here's 31 to 60, and some names in amongst this lot that you would have expected to be slightly higher up the table, but again, you just don't know. With some riders, you never know whether they've had technicals. Like, as I say, we saw one of our riders message us and tell us that he had internet dropout, but you never know. It could be anything from cram on the longer stage to internet issues, dropouts. You know, it could even be, I mean, I've even had myself, I've had punctures where my my wheel-on turbo trainer, I've actually had a proper puncture, and that's put me out of the race completely. So you can have virtual punctures and you can have real punctures. The sad thing for me is seeing Robin Sanderson down in 78th place. I'll try and have a word with Robin later. We do message each other and find out whether he had another issue with dropouts today. But yeah. And Timo Aschenbach, you know, from Moon Riders, way down the order as well. He's a rider you often think would be further towards the front. Nice to see Katie still coming in towards the finish, Katie Lang, along with Mr. Canoe. I still have yet to find out his real name, you know, Mr. Canoe. Who the bloody hell is he? All we ever see with his avatar, he's the Team Lou rider that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen at the moment. Mr. Canoe. I'd love to know his real name. If anybody cares to inform me. But that's Katie he's riding with, Blackmore from OTR. I think it's Stuart Blackmore from OTR. And yeah, So here they are coming into the finish. Swedish rider. Not going to try and pronounce his name. So we're down to about 150, 148 at the moment coming into the line. We're almost there, folks. We're almost towards the end. I think we had 163, did we? Or was it 180? Forget. Only top 90 on screen. Okay, so we can only show the top 90, folks, but you can clearly see, along with me, riders coming in here. So, and the thing is, we stay with the action. We watch the riders coming in. Canoe likes his privacy. Okay, thanks, folk. It's not a problem, mate. It's not a problem. I'm just intrigued. All I've ever known him as is Mr. Canoe, and yeah, ridden with him a few times on the social rides, and in fact, when we rode together during Kate's Trans-America bike race, if you remember, we rode together quite a considerable distances then. He really did help out Kate during that tour. So, well, it wasn't a tour, during that race. As we watched Greening coming in, wearing the GBR kit, I believe. Shane Blackmore. Not, I said Stuart and it's Shane. Okay. Sorry, Paul. I told you I'm terrible with names, mate. You can tell me now, and by tomorrow I'll have forgotten that it's Shane. I'll probably call him Stuart again. And it's no disrespect. It's just I have the worst memory in the world. Short-term memory. My long-term's pretty good, but my short-term memory is shot, and that's down to all the chemicals they pumped into me. But that's another story. Here we're watching Janssens. So yeah, it does look like Janssens, looking at the order, it looks like a few have dropped out. So it does look like Janssens is the last rider on the road. But he's got, we're going to be waiting a little while for Janssens because he's got 11.4 kilometers to go. Now I'm more than happy to sit around. What pace is he managing to hold? He's on the slope. So this is he's currently on the last of the climbs. So let's try and calculate if he can up his pace to 30 kilometers, which he should be able to do. I love you, Derek. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so if this lad can keep his pace going at about the 32 kilometer mark, then we should be looking at what, 20 minutes, give or take. Yeah, so we could be hanging around, folks, for another 20 minutes. So yeah, I said 2 hours. Didn't expect the last riders to be so far behind on the road, but I'm more than happy to sit here if Damon is. It's your call, Damon. Do you want to wrap it, because I know that you're a busy man, or do you want to? And I'm sure these last riders wouldn't mind if we did have to wrap up. We can stay. Okay. You see, now there's a superstar for you folks. Damon from ZMS, despite putting in many hours doing these broadcasts, and don't forget, he has to do the work before, during and after, and particular after these events, he does an awful lot of work posting on the forums and, you know, getting these streams out there. And here he is turning around to me and saying, we can wait. Let's do it. So, you know, Damon's a superstar. And I'm more than happy to sit here and continue the broadcast. But it's not fair for me to make that decision, so we make it, it's a joint effort between the two of us. As we watch Mr. Elliott here, Stephen, one of my OTR colleagues. And one of the things that I do enjoy doing is I do enjoy watching the riders at the tail end coming in. I remember during the Tour du Alps, which was the Tour de Suisse renamed, if you can remember that far back, just before Christmas. The Tour du Alps, we had riders that were, you know, at the back of the field that were taking twice the time it was taking the winners to come in, which meant that we had one stage that it took the leaders 2 hours to complete, and here we were in the commentary hanging around for 4 hours. And that's quite significant. That's a significant part of our day, you know, to hang around for that length of time. But we figured that we owed it to the riders, you know, they could stay on the bike and stay on the stage. We figured we owed it to the riders at the back of the field as well as the riders at the front. And I agree with that sentiment 100%. And we actually gave a prize, and Anne Y, who was the last rider on the road, she actually won the prize. There was a prize giveaway, and it was just coincidental. We didn't plan it that way. But Anne Y, I think she won the £100 prize at the end, and it was just coincidental that she was also the last rider on the road. So a deserving prize. And if while we're watching these riders coming in, Damon, you're still listening and you can pull it up, don't forget, folks, that anybody this time during this tour has the opportunity to win £100. RGT Community News is donating £100, and it will probably, you know, we might even get the odd extra prize added to that. But anyway, it's £100 prize, £100 prize giveaway, and all you have to do to be in the draw with a chance of winning it, the prize will be given randomly and it will be drawn after the final stage. So we've a little while to go yet, but pardon me, all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is ride one stage. I mean, we hope you ride more. I'm definitely going to ride one stage, even if it kills me. I'm not fit enough or well enough at the moment, but I will definitely ride one stage because I want to be in with a chance of winning this prize. And the prize will be drawn completely randomly. Probably, I believe Keith Aitchinson will use his magic spinning wheel, which is completely random. You see it on screen, and what we'll probably do is I'll probably tie it in with an OTR news broadcast and do it live. So we'll probably, and he'll probably do it live as well on Facebook. But you can find out more about this if you go to facebook.com RGT Community News. You can not only find out about this prize draw, but you can also find out all the relevant information about the current standings in the Tour du Monde, and also in the other things going on, like the Echelon Racing League, which ZMS also promote and cover. And that's truly amazing. That's where you get the chance to see, you know, some of the best riders in the world, some of the best e-riders, I should add, esports riders in the world taking part in the races. And ZMS and esports are covering that. So RGT Community News, type it into Facebook, get along there and have a look, because there's some really good stuff on the web page. I know, because I use it for a lot of my information, and I check up on the background a lot for the broadcasts I'm doing. I'm also helped out by my OTR teammates like Paul Nichols, for example, and James Ogilvie, my boss. And they post regular in the OTR forums, especially the OTR e-racing events forum, and that's where I can pull a lot of my information from prior to going live. Yes, and Paul echoes my thoughts. Full respect to the tail end riders. I agree with him completely. It's just as hard, if not harder, Paul, for them as it is the front riders, because they're a lot longer on the bike, and the only incentive they've got to continue riding is to finish and to complete the stage. And it must be hard to do when you know that the majority of the field have finished, 30, 40 minutes in front of you. So, full respect. I love covering it. And we're watching Elliott and Janssens at the moment on screen. But we've got a little while to wait. Let's have a look. How far is 7 kilometers now, Janssens? So we're not too much longer. Just over the 10 minutes if he keeps this pace. Well, if he keeps this pace up, maybe even less, because he's storming. Well done, Janssens. Putting in 50 kilometers an hour. Sorry, that's your distance. I apologise. I was getting carried away. That tells you I'm getting tired, folks. I'm looking at his distance and thinking that's his speed. And of course, that's distance covered. Speed is 28 kilometers. Yeah, that's more like it. That's what you would expect, to be honest. If you've been on the bike almost 2 hours, then if you can maintain 30 kilometers an hour, and I know this from when I was coming back into my distance style of riding. I mean, I'm capable of more than this now, but usually if I'm about the 2 hour mark and I can average 30 kilometers an hour, I'm usually pretty happy at this stage in my riding. But I used to be well capable of above that. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see the riders sticking with it. And we watch another Funderbank we just saw there. Funderberg. Another OTR rider. Not familiar with Funderberg. Can we go back to him? Can we see his first name? T. So could be anything. What's his first name? Do we have it? Now if Tony, there we go. I think I've actually commented on Tony before, so I don't think this is the first time, but he's not a rider I'm overly familiar with. As we watch Stephen Elliott, I know Stephen well. Stephen coming into the finish. Well done, Stephen. Good effort, mate. And look at him putting in a big effort towards the finish. So, yeah. Orange figures. Well done, Stephen. And your teammates just behind you. So we're watching Tony here coming in, another OTR rider. I love the OTR kit, by the way. I know I keep mentioning it because it's my team, but even before it was my team, I was with Team 3R. I brought them over from Swift, and when I set up the Team 3R team here on RGT, I just loved their team kit. But I have to say, I always had a liking for the OTR, and I think I'd taken Team 3R not from a racing perspective. I was never able to get the Team 3R racing boys across, so I concentrated on the group rides and on the social side of Team 3R. And my friend Matt Looker from No Pins Racing Team was the gentleman responsible for bringing the racing side of Team 3R, which are called No Pins Race 3R, and they're now across here on RGT Racing. And Matt has managed to get quite a good following in the events that he's putting on, and hopefully he can grow the Team 3R, either the No Pins or the social side of the team. He can help grow both. And because of that, because I'd more or less taken the social side of it as far as I could, I switched teams when OTR asked me, because I wanted to basically do something different. I wanted to see whether I could help out with more the shall we say the admin and the media side of working on RGT, and that's what I'm doing with OTR. Not so much at the moment. I'm mainly concentrating at the moment on commentary because of my recent illness. I've been away for about 2 months now with a very serious what was almost life-threatening illness. So yeah, I've come back. I'm trying to get back into it, and when I'm fully fit again, I'll be more involved in the media side. But at the moment, I'm enjoying the commentary, and the fact that Damon from ZMS has given me the opportunity to do commentary on these races has really helped me, not just from a physical point of view in terms of, you know, I've been eager to get back and get over this illness, but from a mental side of things as well, because anybody that suffers from any type of mental illness will know that when you're ill, it's very, very hard. It's very difficult. You go through all kinds of emotions, most of them very, very bad. And so being asked to help out with commentary, being asked to do some work, actually puts you in a good frame of mind, actually helps you, and helps you crawl out of that deep dark pit that you could have dropped into when you took ill. And it certainly happened to me. I took very ill and was not in a good place. So I'm glad to be back, folks. I love doing this. I really enjoy chatting away on the broadcasts. I enjoy trying to put across my wisdom. Got a lot of experience. I can generally work out tactics and this kind of thing for you. So I do enjoy it. Now we're still seeing results on screen, as you can see. We couldn't show the large screen. We can only show the top right, the top 90. But here you can see 10 riders at a time. We've gone through the finishing order. Stuart O'Grady. I hope that isn't the, well, I'm saying I hope, maybe that is the real Stuart O'Grady. Couldn't be, could it? Could we have an Aussie here on RGT? No, I don't think so. I think I'm dreaming. I certainly know Marco Verhoek. He's the Dutchman. Covered him quite a few times. As we're watching Janssens now, I mean, we're watching Patterson, but Janssens has now got less than 2 kilometres. Sorry, how much has he got to go? About 4 kilometres. So we've not much longer to go, folks. We're watching Mr. Patterson coming in here. I think his name's Robin. Is it Robin Patterson? Coming in. I do remember this rider in the Watt Bike kit. I've seen him before. Richard. You see, I told you how terrible with names. But I have covered him before. I have covered Richard before. We've seen him finishing stages before. Not always at the back, I have to add. So now it looks like Janssens is struggling. I'm looking at his watt kilos. Oh, but it looks like he's really struggling. 0.8. Yeah, Janssens must. Maybe he's getting cramp, or maybe he's just absolutely killing himself to finish the stage. And this is why we stay with them, folks. You know, sometimes, I mean, supposing he has got cramp and he's really, really struggling, and looking at his watches, there must be an issue, because he's dropping to 0.3 watt kilos, yet still continuing to cycle, and now he's going red. So there might be an issue there, folks, and it might just be something as simple as cramp. That's usually what happens when you see somebody's. Yes, great to be back, James. But just to continue my commentary, when you see somebody's wattage drop into like almost 0 or 0.3 as we're watching Jansen's happen, I know from my own, when I've recorded my own rides and I've got cramp, that's what happens. You almost stop pedaling because you're trying to work out the cramp out of your legs. On a 2-hour stage like this, you burn not just a lot of calories, but you sweat a lot. And unless you've been putting the rehydration in, and you need more than water, I might add, then cramp is something which you always have to be careful of in the longer stages. And that, I'm only surmising, I'm only saying, but that could explain why his wattage is all over the place. Why suddenly he's doing 0.5, 0.7, and then all of a sudden he's going, you know, into the red. And that's because he's really, really struggling to turn these pedals around at times to try and get that cramp. And I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here, looking at these figures being put on screen by Jansen's. Patterson's got a really nice, smooth pedaling stroke, so he's not having those kind of issues. He's just happy to get to the finish. I'm sure he won't mind me saying he's got 700 meters to go, and I'll bet he's glad to finish 2 hours in. He's not going to beat the 2 hours mark, sadly. He's going to be just outside. But well done, Patterson, for sticking with it and finishing. It's a good ride, Richard. And Jansen's just less than 2 kilometers now. So we're going to be just over the 2 hour mark. And to be honest, I said I'd be here for around 2 hours when we started this evening. I didn't expect the winners to finish anywhere near the 1:19 they did, but I did expect the tail enders to be about the 2 hour mark, so I wasn't far off. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Damon, let's watch Patterson coming in and then run the last stage video while we're waiting for Jansen's, because Jansen's struggling, so he's going to take a little while to cover the last 2 kilometers. So let's run the video for the next stage. I'm looking forward to seeing this because I haven't seen it. So this will be the first time I've seen tomorrow's stage. Here we go, folks. Now then, 43 kilometers and half a kilometer of ascent, sorry, just over. Now this looks cool. So you can see it goes uphill there. Now is it going to be an uphill finish? Yes, it looks like it is. Or is it? Is it going to be an uphill finish? Ooh. Oh, maybe not. No, it's not going to. That's not an uphill finish. I can state that before I even see the profile. Come on, show us the profile. So it's 43 kilometers long, 562 meters. So this is not one of the mountain stages. This is one of the what we call the hilly stage. So the way that they're running the tour this year is we're having the flat, the hilly, and then the mountain. I assume that's the way that they've done this first part of the tour. Do we have a profile, Damon, or not? Or do we just have the... not sure. I mean, you can find all the... If we're missing any information, folks, you can find all the information by going to the RGT Community News Facebook page that I mentioned earlier and checking out the prize draw. But also you can check out somewhere amongst the Facebook forums, you will find the rider handbook and you can check out all the profiles for that. I think Damon is just trying to get me the profile now. Here we go. So this time we've got the profile. Now you can see almost from the off, we're straight into the climbing. So this is going to be a tough stage and one for the climbers. The good thing is that you got that steep downhill, but then the terrain Yeah, you've got that bump. You've got this nice flat section, and then it's gently uphill until the final section back down to the coast. Now that'll be a fast finish, but the leaders will be well away. By the time we get over that climb, anybody on that descent who's away in a group will not get caught. I can state that now before we even have commentary on the stage. Anybody who's on that downhill and away in a break will stay away in tomorrow's stage. So the key to look out for in commentary is going to be who's breaking away on the climb. Now this is Jansen's, and look, he's going into the red here. So this only highlights the fact that I think Jansen's, and here you can see his wattage dropping. I think this is a cramp issue. I'm convinced it is, where he's able to put out power for short bursts of time, but then he's really struggling. This looks like me when I was having cramp on some of my longer stages. Thank you, Damon. I couldn't do this without you, mate, as you well know. I love joining your streams. Not only are they the most professional on RGT, but the quality is just outstanding. I love it. I like the way that we can highlight riders and we can show their, not just their wattage and everything else, but their names, their profile. So Jansen's 250 meters. Will this fellow be happy to finish this stage? I think we can safely say, yeah, he's going to earn his shower or bath tonight, that's for sure. Well done, Mr. Jansen's. I think this has been a tremendous ride, because I reckon he's suffered from cramp. What a tremendous ride. I mean, even coming over the line, he's struggling. Well done, sir. And that, folks, is a wrap. That's our last rider in. I look forward to tomorrow's stage. Now, I don't know whether I'm commentating tomorrow or whether they've got another guest commentator. No doubt I will find out later on. But whatever, I look forward to joining you on the next broadcast when I can. And until then, stay safe, look after yourselves, and we'll see you later. Bye everybody.